This is me. I work a lot with CRM, HR, and marketing. I have worked with that in 10 years or so. I come from the customer side, so I kind of stumbled into this world. I do a lot of training. I have done about 50% training the past 2 years. So I do the PL200 training about once a month. Of course, it changes every month, so I'm not doing the same thing every month, but it's still very fun. These are my social media tags, LinkedIn and Twitter. Please feel free to add me there and ask me any questions if you have any.
That's me. Hi, I'm Michael. I work as a Power Platform consultant right now, and I do have a Microsoft 365 background, so SharePoint, Teams, everything that. Nothing Dynamics, nothing Dataverse. And this is kind of important because this is the story how this whole session came along and together. Hi, come in. You might get chocolate. I do focus usually on the user side of the whole tech story, like adoption, governance, change management. That is my focus and my area. And yeah, I'm a consultant by day, a designer by night. So if you need a cool shirt or a logo, ask me later. And yeah, I'm on the social media as well. And let's say a few words. What's the idea behind the whole session or sessions? We are going to have 2 sessions in a row now. At one point, I decided that in my coming from my Microsoft 365 background, doing SharePoint and Teams and stuff, I needed help with Dataverse. This huge, difficult, tricky, but some kind of wonderful database. And I asked her, "What do I need to know? Can you teach me the basics? Because I have no idea." And this is the story that she usually tells, how this story was invented. But she usually misses the part when she asks me about Canvas apps, cloud flows, and all the things that I think that are not easy, but come naturally to me. So since I don't have a CRM background, I have some difficulties with learning Dataverse, with learning model-driven apps and business process flows, because all those things are kind of tied together and they're building up on each other, and that's difficult for me. On the other hand, if you do have a CRM background, then maybe Canvas apps, for example, or cloud flows may be a little bit difficult for you. So that's when we decided to put our minds together and exchange ideas and views, because we have different backgrounds, to to check the PL200 for the functional consultant for Power Platform.
Because you have it scheduled in your diary.
Yeah, the idea was that I take the PL200 before this session happens, so that I can show everybody what I learned. Didn't work out so far because reasons.
We're gonna come back to what you're gonna do and not do when it comes to certifications and exams and scheduling and everything.
Yes.
How not to do it and how to actually do it.
Right. And the idea behind this is not just to just rephrase the content that you have to learn, but to look into the a few tips and tricks, what is really important, what questions you are going to face for sure, for real. And yeah, to give you some ideas how to best prepare for the PL200.
Yes. So we are going to start, because this is the model-driven, model-driven tribe. And if you come from a model-driven world, you know Dataverse, you know solutions. So we're skipping that. That's the next session, though. So if you're interested in that, you could just stay.
So that means in this session, we are going to focus on the Power Apps and the Canvas apps in particular, Power Automate, virtual agents, and the integration part. These are the parts that are important for the PL200, and with those sessions, those topics, we are focusing on the Canvas apps, cloud flows, virtual agents in general, and the integration part. So here
and we're missing a couple of logos because they change all the time.
Right, that's what's on the agenda for today. We are going to start with Power Automate, and as I said, we are focusing on cloud flows. Then Malin will say a few words about Power Virtual Agents, then we come to the Canvas apps, and we close with the AI Builder.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and as I mentioned, we focus on the cool stuff.
in the next session.
Okay. Let's start with Power Automate. And
And if you do have a question, please feel free to raise your hand and interrupt us when we, as we go through. You don't have to wait until the end, because then you have forgotten your question. So you can just raise your hand and ask as we go along.
Okay. We dive right into it. What's important when you are focusing or learning on Power Automate for the PL200 are certain things that maybe don't come naturally if you are building cloud flows, and there are a few nitty-gritty but pretty much awesome things. And we will start with the branches. If you don't know what branching is or parallel branches, you have the possibility with Power Automate, if you build your flows, that you can do multiple runs in parallel. So if the order of your steps that you're going through with the Power Automate flow is not necessarily that important, you can do them in parallel, and they can work side by side. Right? Feel free to add anything.
Yes.
Good, thank you. So, branching, that is one of the functions that is important for the PL200, and there are questions that focusing on that, so you should know how to do it, how it works, and where to find it.
And we are going to give you a lot of resources at the end. And we also have some QR codes that we have put together for all of the resources. So you don't have to write because we have like a bunch of links. So we have collected it all.
And we created one GitHub repository for you to access all of them at once. The slides as well. But not the chocolate.
No questions, we get chocolate.
Okay, so branching. When to use, that is something important to know as well. When the specific order is not needed and the D is missing, and when two or more actions need to be in parallel or run simultaneously. This is something that will be asked for sure. Then we have the conditions. And I don't see the slides right now. Conditions are basically something that, if you are a little bit familiar with Excel or even Canvas apps, is something like an if statement. So you can, where are they? Ah, yeah. So conditions are a good way to restrict certain actions and steps in your flow, because you're able to determine what should happen when certain conditions are met and what happens otherwise. So if yes, then, or if no, then. If we can see, like here, if you start to include a condition in your flow, can you see that? Yeah, a little bit. Then it starts this parallel branches, if no and if yes. And that gives you a lot of opportunities to work with your flows. For example, when we want this flow to notify us when an email arrived in a shared mailbox, for example, but I don't want to be notified every time.
If someone senior, not senior person, but senior management sends an email to the mailbox, then notify me that an email has come, because that's super important. If anyone else, I will get to that when I get to that.
Exactly. So we can choose the value in the field here, and no, here is the value field. We can choose if this value from the email that we can choose there is equal to the value, like for a certain email address, for example. Then we could say what happens if yes, what happens if no. Yes.
Sorry, Mike, we describe the yes and no, if yes, if no as parallel, and just logically, only one of those is actually going to
happen.
Yeah. So on the previous slide, we showed a series of actions that were in parallel, also parallel. Is there any kind of control of whether those can be conditionally executed as well?
You could do a condition before those parallel branches as well, but that would
just do the ones that but you don't have to build something essentially like that with those parallel actions happening inside this.
Yeah, that would work. Then it gets quite fast, quite complex. Sometimes it may make sense to work with trigger conditions, which I will explain later. But yes, this is possible. Where are we going next? Yeah, the dynamic content. Dynamic content can be very complex. Can be, but don't has to be. The point is, I think you've all, or I guess you've all seen the dynamic content part, where you can put in something from the trigger or from a step before. Like for example, if we stay in our example, like when somebody from senior management emails me, then I want to get notified. Otherwise, I don't want to be notified. So we can use this dynamic content to say, to define which is the sender, which is the recipient for the message or the subject. If you put it in here, you don't have to hard code it, but you can define it there.
And for me, coming from a model-driven background and CRM background, I've worked with workflows, which is super simple. Doesn't look really pretty. It works. And I wanna do, because if I start the first trigger with the record is created, and I wanna get something, so I wanna do it like the workflow way of I just want to point to, okay, it is created and this field has changed, then it triggers, and then I want to move on to getting that information and changing that. It's way more complex. This is way more complex because you will need to do a filter and you would have to find the schema name or use XRM Toolbox and the Fetch XML builder. If you're not using XRM Toolbox, you are spending way too much time doing a lot of stuff. Use that, download it. I want to find the name. I don't want to use the logical schema name and some sort of expression, which I have no idea, because I don't code. I don't know that. I want to click and fix things, not write something and do it again, then forgetting that what I've written or forgetting the conditions. And like I knew someone who had created a flow to take everything from WordPress in the database over to Dataverse. And this was a production solution for a customer. We had luckily not gone live yet. But he wanted to take all the things from Shopify in WordPress, which is sales, and putting it over to Dataverse. Okay, good. So he built a flow, and he took all that database over to Dynamics. Perfect. And he did that once a day or at night. Testing works perfectly. And then you get the customer data in it. And then he takes the entire database from WordPress over to Dataverse once a day. Absolutely everything. If you then have 50 million records in WordPress, and you try to put that over to Dataverse once a night, it's not going to finish until the next night. You have to filter. You have to filter. Always use filter when you're working with Dataverse, for example. Otherwise, it will take everything all the time. We learned that the hard way. So for me, coming from a model-driven world and having worked with workflows, absolutely no code, this was kind of I need to learn all of this and all the functions and everything. How does this work? Blah, blah.
I think you are one step ahead. What we have here actually is the dynamic content. And what I wanted to show here is our trigger is Outlook, as you can see. When we click on the dynamic content, we got all these actions we can choose from Outlook, like the sender, the recipient, the subject, or the body. If we have multiple steps after Outlook before a condition, then we can use dynamic content from different apps. So we just can click without coding. We can just like drag and drop the different functions into that. And that is
and you have to have that in the previous steps.
Yes.
So you have to get the list of everything you want to get.
So the point is there's dynamic content. You can use it. It's pretty awesome. It saves you a lot of time.
Oh.
And this dynamic content is in the PL200 for Power Automate as well. That's very important. What's also in the PL200 are the expressions. And that is the next step. And here is something out of order. I think the red frame is supposed to be at the expression word. So the point is, if you do know how to write a little bit of code, and you can write your own functions. Here we do have them. So you do have the freedom or opportunity to customize those things, but you can use the dynamic content as well. It's important to know that both is possible and that both works really well, but this is a little bit more complex and complicated, especially when you say you do have a Dynamics or CRM background, then it can be complex. But both is
For
there.
the certification, you need to know how it works. You don't need to actually get it working. That helps.
That is the point. You don't need to write own expressions for the certification, but you have to know what the difference is and how it works, and that it's there. I think that is the point, right?
Yep.
Good. What do we have here?
Settings?
Check.
What are we working?
Yeah, I think we are going for the yes, for the bonus tip. I was mentioning the trigger conditions. The conditions is a step within a flow, but there's actually something really beautiful. If you click on the ellipsis over there and then to settings, you can add the settings from the flow, and there you find trigger conditions, where you can actually define when a trigger is actually triggered or not. So you can put a condition on a trigger, which is sometimes really, really nice, because then you can put a filter, for example, on a filter to define when a flow should start or when it shouldn't start. So this is something really, really important. This is in the exam as well, and this is not just important for the exam, but actually for everyday life. This is really, really a nice one. If you know how trigger conditions work, then you can like build a whole lower level or a whole new level of flows. Then we have the variables. And this is interesting because every time when a purple shape comes into a flow, I get a little bit nervous because the purple flows is the purple shapes are expressions, variables, and all usually that kind of things that I think it's a little bit tricky.
Codey stuff.
Codey stuff, yes. Well, a variable actually is something like a container that stores a specific information or value that you can choose. And the content may vary depending on what you want it to be. So that gives you a whole lot of flexibility. Hi there. In or out?
I'm glad you didn't walk out.
This is a little bit like the dynamic content that I showed earlier, but this time we are not limited to what Power Automate is giving us. So with a variable, we have a little bit more opportunity and a little bit more freedom. And yeah, this is, I think, one of the most important things around Power Automate, especially for the PL200. Work with variables, functions, and trigger conditions. Those will be in the certification for sure.
Probably for sure.
Probably.
Sorry,
desperate for
oh, yeah.
so the trigger conditions, it stipulated that one or more must be true. Can you mix and or? Because just thinking back to CRM workflows, you could have ands, or you could have ors. You couldn't mix them together. So can you include the trigger conditions?
I don't know right now, but I think you can, right? Yes, yeah, you can.
You're expressing code. Right.
Yeah. You can add different expressions there and but then there's the or
Goes down.
Yeah, there comes more, right?
So it gets complex.
That's why you write
Okay, variables. We have that use case for that, and we stay in this use case like when a certain email comes in our mailbox. And we have like the sender now defined with the condition, the sender is Malin. And let's say if I want or don't want to be notified when Malin is writing me an email, we just say if
you
yes,
want to.
we can use an increment variable that counts how often an email from Malin actually reached our inbox. So, and depending on that, we can say like after 10 times, stop it please, don't notify me anymore. So this variable is counting up, and we can use this variable in the flow, in the ongoing flow, to use it for whatever we like to. Thanks, that's it, right?
Yep.
Is RPR yours?
I think we're running short on time, so I can take that.
Good.
RPA, desktop flow. You need to know what it is. There are some people here that are good at RPA. What they are saying is if you have absolutely no other choice whatsoever, then you use RPA. If you have another choice, do the other choice. Always. That's the good rule for RPA. But you need to know, like, you need to be able to talk about how, or describe how it works, what it does, and how you can use it. That is the main things you need to know about RPA to read more about for the certification.
That's basically it, right? It's just a small amount, small part of the certification. If you know when to use it, why, then you're basically good.
Yeah. So Power Virtual Agent. So what do you need to know about Power Virtual Agent? And this is more of a, you need to be able to define all of these for the certification. You need to know what topics are, what are trigger phrases, conditional nodes, variables, integers, metrics, sharing a bot, and everything. You need to be able to explain all of those for the certification. Topic, greeting, so hello and everything, is the topic that sets off the bot, that starts the bot. That is your topic. One topic has one canvas for the bot, one flow for the bot. And the trigger phrase is what triggers the bot. So the trigger phrase is, as you see here, for goodbye, the topic goodbye has 67 out of the box trigger phrases. So if a customer says goodbye, was it bye-bye, thanks, bye for now, or any of the other ways of saying bye, basically, then that will start that canvas for the bot in the flow.
So goodbye is a topic. Hello could be another topic.
Yes,
And
yes. You have some
content-wise,
out-of-the-box ones that you can see. If you would be so kind to clicky pointy. Oh, you have.
I have it here. Should I point it?
Pointy boy. So here you see the names. Lesson 1, lesson 2, that is the topic. And the trigger phrases, you can see how many there are. You should have from 5 to 10 trigger phrases for each topic.
Like
This is a lot of work. This should be a lot of work. Do not build a bot if you don't have clear instructions on what to do, or if you don't know what the bot should do. Please don't. Your customers will hate you. I will hate you.
And this will be, if you can go back one slide again, 5 to 10 trigger phrases is a certain, like, important number to know. You can see here, start over, there are 3 trigger phrases, or thanks, there are 4. This is not how it's done. And if in the certification you get a question like how many trigger phrases should I have, at least 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you going to call the session?
Hmm?
How are you going to call the session? What's the time limit for that? For one session?
Oh, one set time limit for one session. I have no idea.
60 minutes.
60 minutes? Yeah, okay, so so from you trigger that until you go into another, yeah, we're on licensing. That's way off topic. We're luckily jumping all the way over that one. Or talk to Victor about licensing. Sorry, you came in late, so.
I have sent it all to Nick. I said, hey, this guy called Nick Dolan is going to present tomorrow. You can ask him.
Yeah. And Nick is Microsoft as well, so go to Nick. That's, yeah. Conversational nodes. This is, as you see here in the middle, you ask a question, and you have 3 versions that that you can respond, and that gives you on to 3 conditions, and you can, like, you could make a big ass bot, and it could answer everything you want to answer, and you just, like, you see the Cody stuff, save response as, that comes out of the box, so you don't have to think about that. You write the questions and you write the options, and you get these boxes, and you can build on from there. Variables, that is what is made, and you can use the, I'm just speeding a bit up because we have a lot of slides. halfway there. Entities, not to be mistaken for the old entities, tables. These are Power Virtual Agent entities. And it is for storing, like age. You can say you are 20 by numbers, or by writing it out, or by everything. But it is the number 20. So it is to translate things into the same, and to store things and to do actions for that. Analytics. There are a lot of analytics in bots. Use them. If nobody uses your bot, kill it.
This is a very important part of the certification, actually.
Yes. You have the total sessions, engagement rate. Go through all of this. Click on the exclamation point, which Michael will point at. By the total sessions, for example, you have an exclamation point for each of them, or a round thingy.
Here. Yeah,
Yes.
here.
Go
here.
through all of them, read them, try to remember them for the certification. Because you might get questions, what are all of these?
What are they measuring and what are they used for?
Yes. And how can you see what they are? And we're not going to go through, because that would be a 2-hour session in its own. Publishing and sharing. You need to publish your bot before anyone can use it. You need to be a bit aware about channels. What are the different channels that are available? How can you use them? What can be configured out of the box? Can you add your own? Go through all of this.
Good. Canvas apps, next.
Yeah.
Should I stay here? Good, okay. Okay, Canvas apps. And I start with the formulas because this is the most descriptive part of the apps, actually. And that was something, if you ever hear Microsoft say this is a low-code to no-code platform, this is the low-code part. The model-driven apps we do in the next session are the no-code part. Formulas are a huge part of Canvas apps, like one of the most important parts. And Microsoft always says everybody can do an app if you know how, I don't know, if you can, what do they say, Excel and PowerPoint skills. If you can like create a shape and know a little bit of Excel functions, then you are able to build a Canvas app. Technically true, but that makes it sound like really easy. And low code does not necessarily mean that this is easy, and this is actually a lot. Formula-wise, you have at least 2 different formulas. The behavioral formulas, like the first one, this is a fill formula, or an if formula that we put on the fill property, where we decide when a shape should be filled. And this is what the typical if function looks like that Microsoft has in mind. We fill a shape if a certain value is greater than 0, then we fill it with the color black. If not, then we color it with the color red.
So if you are creating, you want an answer to something, and you want to mark it with this answer is wrong and with a red background, that would be it. That would be the statement you use.
And you have to write that by yourself.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a lot. These are the behavioral formulas, and actually there are a lot of them. There are more formulas, which is the the update context formula that I have here. This is on the onSelect property. There are a few properties that don't represent a behavior, but a state, like if you select something, or if you start the app, or if you switch the screen, something like that. Where you can, what we do here, we update the context, we update a variable in that point, and we navigate to a next screen. So there are 2 different kind of formulas, and that is important for the certification as well, which is a little bit interesting because in real life you don't really need to know if this behavioral formula or not, but in the certification you do need to know that. That's a little bit tricky sometimes.
Yep. And if you're very good at formulas, you have the PL100, which is the app maker.
Yeah.
That is more on formulas and all of that.
This is all about Canvas apps. And if I say this is like a lot, and this is not necessarily easy just because it's low code, there are by now over 184 formulas and 35 operators and controls and properties. There's a lot, and you can mix them and put them together. This is a lot to learn. There are, I think, just a few people, most who know almost all of them, but this is a lot. If you know how a general formula works, if you look at the if statement up there, if you can see if a value of a text box is greater than 0, if you can hardly kind of read it, then you're basically good to go for the certification. You don't have to write formulas your own, but you have to identify them as a behavioral formula or not, and what can be expected to happen if you see that formula. That is the main difference between model-driven apps and Power Apps. This is Power FX. This is the syntax that you need to know and be aware of. So luckily you don't have to know all the formulas, operator and controls, but a rough knowledge is like very much important.
You need to at least know what they are.
Yeah. What else do we have? We have variables here as well. We described them in Power Automate and Power Virtual Agents. This is basically the same thing. And here we have an example with the set formula that you see here in the command bar. We define a variable. This is called var visibility, and I just gave it the name. You can name your variable whatever you want it to be. It helps if you put the VRA at the beginning that you remember this is a variable actually. And this one is set to true now. And I put this on the onSelect property. You can see that on the left side of the screen of this button. The button is marked, the button true is marked. So I mark the button true, search for the onSelect property, and then I write the formula that I want to use. That's how variables actually are initiated and used. So variables are important for Power Automate, virtual agents, and apps. Are they necessary for the model-driven part as well? No, right?
No, because our buttons work.
See? Yeah. This one is the same button. It's a false button, and you can see it looks almost the same. We set the variable visibility to false or to true, depending on the button. This is how the variables work. And now if we put something like this on a shape, on different shades, and we put this variable that we just defined, the variable visibility, on the visible property of this shape, then we can, if we set the variable to true or false, we can define if the shape is visible or not. But obviously there's a slide missing.
Oh.
Okay, so there's happened something. Anyway, variables, formulas, and variables are super important for the certification, as well as collections. Collections is something that is basically what you always use, at least for if you want offline capabilities of apps. Also very important topic for Canvas apps in the certification. If you start a collection, and you can start a collection at any time, at any point, if you want to, with a formula of collect. It's like where you collect data in some kind of in the app, but not in a database, until you decide to do something with it. So what we do here in this formula is that we collect the input from the text boxes, the color and the topping, blue and the pineapple, and we put them in the collection, which is called food and topping collection. Then when we do that and we click on the button, we can see that we have a collection with food and topping collection, where we have a table, color and topping, blue and pineapple. So in the formula, we define the columns that we need in our collection, like color and topping. And we see there we have the columns, color and topic, and we filled them with the text properties of the text inputs. Now we can do something with this table that we have. We can store it like until we need it, for example. And if you want to work with offline capabilities, you can store all the data that you have in a collection until, for example, you have a Wi-Fi connection again. That is how you basically work with offline capabilities in Canvas apps. So collections is one of the most important parts that we are going to need. The next thing is flows. You can, of course, add flows into Power Apps. And this works a little bit, well, you have to know how it works. You have certain actions. You have this action tab on the top, and you can add Power Automate flows. And then you get this little menu where you see all the flows that are available for the specific app that you have. Because all the flows that you have are not automatically available for an app. You have to make them available or create it from within the app so that it works. I usually you have you can create this new flow, or if you have flows already available for the app, they are listed over there. We have 2 flows, the web wipes and the click a button in Power Apps. And if we add them, and when we click on them, then we are adding them to the app, and then we can use it. So this is a little bit of an approach on its own, that you need to know how this works. So start the Canvas app, then you click on Actions in Power Automate, then you come up with a flow to add it. And
It can be good at this point to say that this is an app you made for a kindergarten, thus wet wipes.
Yeah, that's why the flow is called web wipes. Yeah, but the important part is that you don't start with the flow, you start within the app, then you create the flow and add it to the Canvas app. This procedure, this process isn't really necessary to know for the PL200. And it's a little bit an approach on its own. Last but not least, we do have error handling. Whenever you see that nice little X over there, you know that something went wrong.
Often.
And it's frustrating. But if you click on it, you can see that you have 2 options. You can edit that in the formula bar, which basically brings you to the formula bar to correct your mistake, but doesn't help you necessarily, or get help on this error on a side panel. And this usually looks like this.
Yeah, really helpful.
Well, the issue is explained, and it's even explained how to fix it, and this is kind of my guilty of that. Every time I run into something like this, I ask for help, and the question I always get is, did you Google that? That helps actually with trying to solve these errors, because they are not that bad explained, actually, they are kind of good. And apart from that, there is something more that is really important. If you click in your formula bar, then you can see that is this called IntelliSense, by the way? Is this IntelliSense? I'm not really sure, right, yeah? What we can see here, we wanted to run a flow in the formula bar. No, that's good. And we can, yeah, maybe I will show. All right, here. So there we have our command. This is a run a flow command, and it shows us now what we have to type in. First one, we have the recipient of the mail, then a comma, then we have the subject of the mail, a comma, then the body of the mail, and then we close the brackets. And that is how it's done. So it gives you hints how the formula is actually written. Sometimes it can still be a little bit tricky because it doesn't tell you that if you put in the body of the mail, it is a text and you have to put that into quotation marks. It doesn't say that, but you get kind of hints.
And when you do error handling in a Canvas app, there is absolutely no shame in Googling.
Yeah, that's true.
Or call someone.
Yeah, so that is the example. The subject, the recipient, and the body for this type are needed to be like as a text string, a string basically, which needs to put in quotation marks, but the IntelliSense doesn't tell you that. You have to know that actually. So the error handling is kind of a little bit of a trial and error, and experience helps. Something else that we have is the app checker. There's this little app checker symbol in the upper right corner of the studio over here. And if you see a little red button here, then you know that there's something in the app checker that you can, but you must check.
And this is something that most likely will be a question on the exam.
Yes.
How do you do this?
Yeah.
App checker and accessibility.
Yeah, accessibility is a very important part, and of course, the sooner you start check your app for accessibility features, the easier it is and the least amount of work you have to do, and Microsoft really wants to focus on that. So they have a lot of questions in their certification around accessibility and how to check your app if your app is accessible. The app checker in the, here we go, in the upper right corner, opens another menu to see where you have errors or tips that you could use for formulas, for runtime rules, accessibility, and performance. And if you click on those, you can see, for example, that we have an error, we have a missing accessible label on the toggle number 1, for example. This is important to know because this is a huge focus from Microsoft for the certification.
And for your own sanities.
Yes, and
Give
for your own users.
things names that you can understand. If you want to use parts of this in another screen and you're going back and you have buttons 1 to 40, You have no idea what they do. You don't remember. Give them names. Give all of them names to what they actually do. Like this, click send to Dataverse, or send an email, or give them proper names. Be aware of capital letters everywhere, because if you use it somewhere and there's a capital letter or just small letters, that could be an issue when you try to use that later.
Yeah, not important for the certification, but for everyday life.
For mental health.
That's true, yeah. Okay, what else do we have to Canvas apps? Components and libraries. This is something that you need, that what this is and what this is for. Basically, Power Apps components, they are reusable parts that you can build once and your user can use multiple times. They are basically available in the whole environment. You can create custom properties if you need to, and that can really fasten up your app building process for your users.
If you know that you always, in absolutely every app you ever create, want to use your company logo in a banner up top, then you create a component that is available every time, and you find that component and you don't have to use that or to make that every single time. Where did I store that logo? What was the color scheme of it all? How does it, where does it? Create that. If you know you're going to use it more than one time, well, create a component and you can use that multiple times, as many times as you want. Other people can use that component as many times as they want, and you're saving time.
The good thing is you don't know for the PL200 how to create a component, but how it's used and why it's used.
Yep.
This is important.
Yes.
Yes, we can find them on the left side on the tree view. And we have an example actually for the components, for the custom components from this app, because I really like this menu on the left-hand side, this navigation menu. If you build this in a whole component, so it's not only the banner or a logo or something, but something rather complex like a menu, you can build this once and use this multiple times. This is really important.
Let's say you have an app with like 700 pages and you want to have that menu on every one of those pages. Well, you create that once as a component, and then you just add that to your 700 pages. Otherwise, you would have to create that menu that way 700 times. Yep. Saves time. Again, mental health as well. AI Builder, and we have quite a couple of slides left. AI Builder, what? That's basically what you need to know about the AI Builder. What are the components that you have? What do they do? And it's more, how can you, what is the category classification and the entity extraction, form processing, object detection, prediction? What are the different models that are general available? Not the preview ones, because they are, I will never say never, because, well, Microsoft sometimes, what's in preview? But rarely you need to know about the preview features. Focus on the ones that are general available and go through what they are. Make sure you know what they are. And that's basically all you need to know with the AI Builder.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of good people. I mean, being here is a very good start to learning things and to see who to follow everywhere. These are some people. Julian Sharp, who's not here, at least not today. CRM chap, which is Joe, he's here today. Tattooed, I mean, both of them do a lot of training, and I don't know if there's a thing Joe does not do training on. CRM, Power Platform, Azure, finance operations, you name it, he's just a wizard.
The point is, these people have blogs about trainings and certifications and how to prepare for them. And the blogs we put on here are very helpful to get started with Power Virtual Agents, with Canvas apps, with Power Automate Flows, and with the AI Builder, actually.
Yeah,
So
and a lot of other stuff. And then you have these two. If you don't want to pay attention or follow everyone on our lists. And as I said, we have a QR code for you at the end where you can actually get the actual links and not just a picture of them. Power Platform Weekly, a newsletter that comes out once a week. Every Monday, you get an overview over all the good blog posts, all the good videos, all the good events, all the good sessions that has been, all the good news that comes along. That is the one to follow, because then you don't have to go around looking for where is that content. Is that good content? Can I trust this content? Is that something that will work, or will that break my production environment? These are 5 people-ish or something like that go through all of that for you and send it out in an email. Ta-da! And if you're a developer, you have Power Platform Developers Weekly. Not quite as good as PP Weekly. Developer. Julian Sharp has written a book. So if you want to read more about the PL200 exam, that is the book for you.
It's the only one out there, right?
Yes, as far as I know, that is the only one. It's on Amazon. On that QR code, you can find that book. ERD Builder, Cookie, he is also here because entity relational diagrams is a mess and it's hard. He has a tool in the XRM toolbox, which you can plug into your Dataverse and you get out this in Visio. He also has one for business process flows and Power Virtual Agents, actually.
Nice to know, nice to have, not necessarily for the PL200, but something that you should be aware of.
And there's a ton of people on YouTube. And you can find everything here, basically. This is the GitHub report story from Michael, or that he's put together, so I just keep sending him links and he keeps updating everything when we find new people and new content that is out there. That is where all of everything is.
Once again, not everything there is out there, but everything that's very important for the PL200.
Yes. Speaker Sophie?
Yes, please. And then we are done, actually, with the first part.
Smile. Good. So, again, thank you to the sponsors. I think this is the important things. Good, there you go. Thank you for the questions. Yeah. So, thank you so much for coming. We have a new session in 10 minutes here, where we go through all the actual cool stuff.
Yeah, like Dataverse and model-driven apps and business process flows and oh my god.
All the fun stuff. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.